I'm Rick Palea. I lead the customer organization here at SmartSuite, and I am joined today by Peter and Artem. I'll let them do some quick intros here, and then we'll get this thing rolling. Peter, would you like to do a quick intro?
Sure. Peter Novosel. I'm one of SmartSuite's co-founders, and I'm also Chief Product and Innovation Officer. And we're spending a lot of time and a good chunk of our product roadmap on AI enhancements. And we're going to show you some practical applications today with AI Assist, which is available for your use in our automations engine. And we may hint at some of the things that are coming soon as well.
Love it.
Artem?
And Artem?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Artem. I'm a product manager at SmartSuite. You might have seen me in some of the help videos that we recently uploaded to the homepage. So I hope you find them useful. And yeah, I also have some, I hope, very useful use cases where AI can come into place and help your everyday lives easier. So yeah, very excited to share them.
Amazing. This is the real Artem, folks. I've had someone ask me these videos that he creates, like they must be AI produced. He has just such a voice and a presence for it. He does. And we're very lucky to have him on the SmartSuite team. But you're getting the real
I wish
Artem.
they were the real stuff.
You get the real Artem today. Brilliant. Okay, last thing, housekeeping, but an important one. Down at the bottom, you'll see this little reaction heart where it says react. Let's keep that buzzing today. Let's keep it active. All right, this shows Artem and Peter that that you're engaged, that you are enjoying what they're covering. And there's going to be quite a bit that we go through here. We'll weave Q&A in throughout. It's also really helpful for us if you drop your questions in the dedicated Q&A section down there at the bottom versus in the chat. So we'll try to get everything covered. Yeah, let's keep this interactive. Look, I always feel this way with webinars. You can join and it could be something that maybe you absorb a little bit. But also with AI now, if you aren't present, then you might as well just have it digested and send you feedback. So we're here together. You might as well be locked in, engaged, enjoy the time, and let us know what you're thinking about. This is a session for those that want to push the bounds on AI and want some things that you can apply today. So with that, Peter, let's get rolling.
Absolutely. So is my screen sharing appropriately here?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yes.
good deal. All right, well, we'll dive right in and show you a couple of things that you can do with AI. I think we were originally focused this session on project management, and then when Artem and I started talking about it, we decided that we'll broaden the scope just a little bit, because I think a number of the tips and techniques that we're going to show you are applicable in a wide variety of use cases. So let's dive right in. The first thing that I want to show you is how to use AI to help enhance the data that you're storing in SmartSuite. And here you can see I've got a mocked up sales CRM with a couple of company names you probably recognize. And one thing that's always useful in any type of contact management system is to have some background information. And AI is a great tool to gather that information without you having to go find it all, put it in a spreadsheet, upload it, so on and so forth. This is something that's very repeatable. And you can have a variety of triggers that allow you to either automatically perform these actions or just on demand. Say that we're really getting down the road with Pfizer and we need some more information, we can run enrichment on it. And I'll do a few of these just so that we can see a variety of different types of data. And you can see some of the things that we're looking for. You know, I want a good general description of the company. I want to find its LinkedIn link. I want to see what time zone they're in, how big the company is. Maybe I'm using some keywords for marketing purposes, and I'm going to segment those companies. Here we've got a smaller one just to show, you know, some of the differentiation that you can do. And if they're public companies, we can get things like their annual revenue and information of that sort. So how do we do this? Let's take a look at the configuration of this particular scenario. And here you can see, one of the very common techniques that we use is just using a yes/no field as a toggle. You can also do this with buttons. So we've recently released the ability to link a button to an automation. You can do it that way. But in this case, I'm just saying that I want to run the enrichment process when that yes/no field is equal to yes. And also when the domain is filled in, because I want to have some good context. I want to make sure that I'm finding the right company and I'm not kind of inventing some information about the wrong company. Into the prompt itself. So if you've seen some of our previous videos or webinars, you know that we have an AI assist custom prompt action, and it has a little bit of configuration. You have to provide your key. So we take the approach of we call it the bring your own key model, where you can select the platform of your choice. You can select from many of their popular models, and we give you some information about those models when you hover them, like, do they have support for file attachments? What's the relative cost? A little description of the model and what it's good at. And in this case, and this one's kind of important, I'm picking ChatGPT's 4.0 mini search model. Mini search is great for searching the web. It's specifically designed to go out and find information, and it will use internet searches to do that. So when you're doing this type of data retrieval, you want to give the prompt a little bit of a nudge in the right direction, right? So first I'm setting the context and I'm telling the prompt, you're a sales operations research assistant. This is always good to just kind of align the outputs so that the AI understands what overall job function is it performing. And then I'm telling it, your job is to search the internet. I'm saying that explicitly for information about a company. And I only want that information to come from credible and verifiable sources. To that end, I'm giving it some additional instruction about that searching and the prioritization. So we're going to prioritize the company's website as number one. That's most authoritative. And then we work down the list. So LinkedIn comes after that, then Crunchbase, PitchBook, Glassdoor, things of that nature, business directories, and then general web search, and telling it to use this cautiously only if all of the other sources fail, which would typically only happen for very small companies. I'm also giving it some information about conflict resolution. So many of these sources could produce a result. So what do I do when I get results? I'm telling it to prioritize LinkedIn for number of employees, Crunchbase for its own URL, things of that nature, so that you're getting the best information back possible. Now, this is something that I like to do in prompts that get into this type of formatted data. I'm giving it rules that it should strictly follow. This one's very important. I don't want the model to invent things, right? AI has this tendency, when it can't find explicit information, it tries to extrapolate. And in this case, I really don't want that. I just want the actual information about this company. I want company size in particular formats. I want only full URLs. I wanted to return all of the fields so that we make sure that our next steps perform accurately and that we don't get any errors when we're updating records and so forth. And then telling it, even if it's empty, return me the field with an empty value. This part of the prompt and this formatting, I found it kind of convenient. It's just a way I like to organize things. I give it sections that are in kind of an HTML style notation. This isn't required, but it helps the prompt organize that information and know explicitly what is the information in this section and what do I use it for. So this is our existing company data. It's just the name and the domain in this case. but I want this to be prominently factored in, obviously, because we've got to identify the company that we're going to go search on. Then I start to describe the CRM fields that I want to populate. And here I'm giving it the name of the field and then a description of what I'm after. So I want a description that's similar to something that products like HubSpot or Warmly would generate for the company description. I want it to give its best estimate of annual revenue. And in this case, this is kind of interesting. Address information, giving it an example of how I want that structured. We do a similar thing down here in company size. You saw on that grid view that we have a categorization, like, is this a small or medium-sized business? Is it commercial, enterprise, large enterprise? Those are categories that we established in the CRM, and we want AI to abide by those and put the company in the appropriate category for us. And then the industries itself, if we have a list of values that we want to use because we're populating maybe a single select list, I want to tell it explicitly which values are okay to use. And I tell it up in the prompt, we're going to use these values exactly as they are so that we make sure that we match those values when we do the update in the next step. This final bit is just something that is recommended for more complex prompts, and it can really help improve the accuracy, is to give the AI some examples of what does good look like. That way it can compare its output to the good example and also look at a bad example and say, oh, did I do any of these things that I explicitly do not want to generate? And it just helps raise kind of the confidence level of the results that you're going to get back from AI. Once we've done all of that, we're also using custom outputs to put these into some variables that we can use in later steps. In this case, we're just updating a record to populate all this data, but you could certainly use the same information in emails and any other action that we have available. You could send this to a different location. Maybe you're updating something in intercom. All of that is possible with these values. In this case, I have a fairly simple lineup. I've just got text and numbers. When you specify these, you give the property a name, and that's what you're going to use for mapping in subsequent steps. So you give it a name that's descriptive of what this data is, and you can also give instructions here. Now, I've got them in the prompt, but I'm repeating them here just to make sure that all of the data is really described as well as possible, so that we've got the highest percentage chance of getting the right information into the right field. Once I have all of those detailed, I can go to my next step, which is an update. And here I'm saying that I just want to update the triggering record. So the one that this was kicked off when I toggled that yes, no field. And here you get to tell it what you want to do with that information. I'm saying I want to put company in description into the company description field, and I'm going to replace its value. One thing you may not have noticed is that you can actually click on this header, and for many fields, you can choose what you want to do with it. Do I want to replace the value? Do I want to append the value? Or I can even clear a value in many cases. And that can be handy, at certain points in a workflow process where maybe you just want to clear a field and reset it back to no selection. I've got all of those mapped in. And this is the result. Where we're going out, and let's open one of these. You can see that our company description for SpaceX was populated. I can see the market segment it was placed in. its annual revenue because we're looking at a public company, number of employees, it's in the aerospace industry, and it's in the LA time zone, UTC -8. So this same technique can be used for a wide variety of things, but very handy for going and tracking down information without having to go perform these searches manually. I'll
Love it.
pause there for a second. Rick, do
Yeah.
we have any questions that have popped up?
We do. And I'd be remiss as a sales leader not to mention, I'm sure some of you have evaluated tools that do this sort of capability and can be very expensive to bring this level of intelligence to your salespeople or your employees in whatever role they're in. Obviously, relevance is the name of the game. So this is a huge unlock for us and hopefully for you and what you're building in SmartSuite. The main question that we do have is around Copilot and the ability to leverage Copilot with our AI.
The
I
ability
believe
to
Microsoft Copilot is what they're referring to.
the Copilot model. Let's see. Right now, we do support Microsoft models, but it's Azure AI. We'll have to take a look at Copilot specifically and see if that's something that could be added into this list of available models.
Got it. Andrea shared, I don't think Copilot is a model. I think they're more so saying, like, is there a way that you can connect Copilot with SmartSuite in some way?
Yeah, not currently. I'd be curious to hear about some of the use cases maybe that you're trying to support with that. There are a variety of different things that are labeled Copilot, so it'd be interesting to know specifically, which one and what you're trying to do with it. So
Yeah.
send us some feedback and we will
Okay.
look more closely into it.
Sounds good. And Kevin did acknowledge, who originally asked the question, that he uses Azure. So
Okay.
that might be that might do the trick between that and ChatGPT, it looks like.
Yeah, and when you configure Azure, you actually you configure an endpoint for it. So you've got some flexibility to reference the specific model that you've configured in Azure. And there are several of the platforms that are like that, like watsonx and several others, where if you've configured something in that environment, you give it the relative reference of where to send those queries.
Nice. One of my favorite sub features there, Pete, if you just click on that model again, just want to make sure people, if you haven't yet explored our AI, I presume not everybody's an expert on what model is best for what. So from a cost perspective and just when you would use what, I love that we highlight that there just to give you a little bit of guidance. So you'll see that all there listed. We have another question here around, okay, there's a few requests for your prompt, Peter. So you've built something brilliant and people would love access to that. Is that something we're game to share? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll figure out the best way to share that, either through a community post or a blog or something similar. We can definitely make it available.
Very good. And then Mary asked an interesting one, which I'm pretty sure can be done. She's asking about understanding the source of the data so that things can be proved. Could you have in your prompt, as part of the prompt, could you say to list out the source of the answers, and that could be something that you extrapolate?
Absolutely. You can tell it to annotate the results or even have a specific field that contains references. We kind of strip a lot of that out of the prompt results unless you specifically ask for it. You're generally not going to get the references, but it can definitely be retrieved.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Awesome.
a great point.
A few others, and then I'll let we can kick on to the next phase of it. Will is asking if you'd be willing to support Open Router. So with one subscription, you can access all models. Is Open Router something we've looked at?
We don't currently support it. We actually use a a piece of technology on the back end that connects to a wide variety of models, but I've heard similar requests for Open Router and the way that it works. So it's something that we'll take a look at.
Okay. Good stuff. All right. Rob is asking, are the SmartSuite OpenAI responses still technically HIPAA compliant? I think it would come down to the model, would it not?
Probably would. I don't know that any of these AI platforms themselves claim HIPAA compliance. So if you did need a truly HIPAA compliant environment, you may need to do your own research into that. Maybe using a private model out of Azure or something would be compliant if it was done in particular ways. But I think you would want to definitely be cautious with what information is used in your prompts if you are maintaining a HIPAA compliant environment.
Okay. Yeah, Andrea is suggesting here in the chat that you could put a prompt in the responses that it should be compliant. So there's probably some things you can do to strengthen that potential compliance.
Yeah,
and then Joe, go ahead, sorry.
anonymize anything that looks like PII and that sort of thing would definitely be advisable. But yeah, I would tread cautiously there just because, we're talking about private healthcare information. You want to be careful where that gets routed to.
Absolutely. Joe has a related question. The heart of AI being implemented is the containment of learning. Is this controllable via SmartSuite? And Tara's talking about the fact that you can bring your own model. So thus, yes.
Yeah, we're not directly training any models, so you don't do any training or tuning right now through SmartSuite. We're working on some things that will make more SmartSuite available in certain ways. We're going to start talking about more agentic type actions that are available. And for that, we will vectorize data and use it, within our own environment. But right now we're not training anything. So it is an important consideration when you're building up your prompts, because you want to payload in all of the information that AI is going to need from SmartSuite to make its determinations. And that's why, here we can reference fields directly. I didn't show that. This little button allows you to access fields either from the trigger or from a prior action. And I'll show that here in one of the upcoming scenarios.
Excellent. So with that, Swaroop is sort of leading us into, I don't know if this is the next use case, but moving us along. He's asking about leveraging this AI for project management type use cases.
Yeah. I'm going to get into some things that, some patterns that could be used in project management. So let me show one other thing that's kind of CRM related, and it's kind of adjacent to what we just looked at, and that's creating a research assistant with AI. So say that you've got an opportunity record, and let's remove SpaceX's. Let's say we're going to try to go sell some GRC stuff, some risk and compliance software to SpaceX. It would be nice to have a little backgrounder about what they're doing in that space. Are there things that are happening in the news that are relevant? Have they announced anything or any initiatives in that area? And that is also easily done. Here, I'm just triggering off of anytime our opportunity is updated, you would dial that in more in a production use case. But here, similar to what we just did, I'm telling it to act as a sales research assistant. And I want a structured summary that includes things like recent news, pain points, challenges, buying signals in this area, and any key contacts if we can find them. And then here we're providing AI with information about the company and our primary use case for the sale, the department or team that's targeted, the type of opportunity that it is, and then mapping in the results just into a SmartDoc field. So when we run this, and let's go into SpaceX and we'll just make an update so that we run the enhancement. And here we go. We've got a structured output with recent news. Hey, there any relevant sales, thoughts on pain points and challenges along the lines of risk and compliance, and then any buying signals. And it did that in seconds, saving us quite a bit of Googling time. Now, you'll notice that AI came back with what's called markdown format, where bold is indicated by a couple of asterisks and bullet points are dashes at the beginning of the line. We're working on some enhancement to SmartDoc that will more natively understand this and format it with our bold and our headings and so forth. But just another trick to show you one of the other aspects of AI that we've got in the product. If you select all of the text in here, you'll notice that we've got an Ask AI button. If I click on that and tell it format markdown, the in SmartDoc AI will go and do that for you. And then you can just tell it to replace the selection. And now it's nicely formatted. So we're going to marry those two things together and get this as potential outcome directly from the prompt. But just know that right now you also have AI available to you in the SmartDoc itself and can do things like formatting and even extending this text or finding more examples of buying signals or whatever it is. I could tell it to make this longer and it would keep going. All right. Okay, so let's shift gears just a little bit. The next couple of techniques that I'm going to show you are sort of adjacent to product management. Here I'm going to do some things that are specifically in our IT asset management, ITSM, for analyzing tickets and prioritizing things, but all of these techniques are applicable to project management as well, and you could apply them in those workflows in a similar fashion. So the first thing that I'm going to do is show you how you could automate the creation of another ticket. So in this case, I'm going to take a device assessment. So I've got my technician who's gone and looked at a server or a laptop and has written up what needs to be done. In this case, we're doing a motherboard replacement and we need to update the operating system as well. Those are two different activities, and maybe I've got them captured this way just as the output of an initial research. How do I take those and make it easy to reflect these as actual tickets that can be assigned to people? Well, AI happens to be pretty good at that. Let's take a look at a flow that does exactly that. So the first thing that happens here, I'm going to kick this off when it's set to ready for review status. You'll notice that we're not starting with the AI prompt. We're starting with a find, because what I want to do is find the record that has information about the device that was just assessed. Now, this, in another context, this could be finding the company that's related to a project, finding the tasks that have been created for it. And Artem's going to show you some things here in a few minutes too that reflect some of those flows. But in this case, I'm going to find that device. And now what I'm telling the AI to do is to construct a list of service requests for me. And they contain these things: a name, a category, a priority. I'm giving it some important guidelines. I don't want it to invent problems. I only want things that are specifically mentioned in that assessment findings field. And I want to consider the device function and its own risk levels when I'm setting the priority of the tasks. Then I give it some information about the assessment and also a list of valid service request categories, as well as priority values. Once I've got that, my output is a little different here. You'll notice that I want it to output an array. So an array is a list, and the list contains a number of objects. The object is that service request. So don't let the terminology scare you away. These are powerful tools, because now that I've got a list of these objects, I can go use our looping action. Here's the loop. So I'm selecting AI as the input, and I can see that it's identified. I've got an array in the output. So that's what I'm going to go loop against. And what I want to do is go create a record, one for each of those items. Now, I could have multiple actions here. In this case, I just need to go create those new tickets, but you can do a whole variety of things here within the loop for each item that you're looping over. Now, I know that gets a little bit more complex, but this gives you a ton of flexibility to go and create records based on its analysis of that text field. And here I'm setting all the values in my new tickets, including the reason that it decided to create this ticket. So kind of along the lines of, Rick, what you were talking about with references on the search, we can also ask AI to justify why it made certain selections of these various types. And that's exactly what we're doing right here. When you map these and you're performing an action within a loop, it's also important to know that one of the input types is current item. You want to select current item inside the loop if you want the values from that object, that thing in the list that you're looping over. So here, if I click on current item, I can see category, name, priority, and reason, which is exactly what I put as my outputs when configuring the AI output list. Okay. And the outcome from this, let's put one of these in motion, are new service request items. And you can see when they get created, the requested by is SmartSuite automation. You can immediately see that this was automatically generated. It's got that impacted device. Here are our new ones. There are the device, and we can see there were two items. There's that motherboard replacement and the OS update. So you can use this to break things into individual tasks and create them automatically and save a ton of time and really optimize some of your processes. Now, I know that was a little more complex, so let me pause again. Are there any questions about this type of configuration?
No specific questions about that. We have some side questions, but let's keep the demo going, and I'll weave some of these
All
questions
right,
in.
I want to give Artem enough time, so I'm going to breeze through the next one. The next one is actually taking, so we've got a request process, and in this case, it's a service request form. And I've got one that's pre-configured here where people are asking for things to be done by their IT team. But this could also certainly apply in projects with a change request and that type of flow as well. And what I'm doing is I'm giving it some information about the submitter, got their email address, letting them set a criticality, and then describing what it is they need. And I'm going to highlight this one because this user is submitting as a criticality of 2, which is pretty low, but their description doesn't match that criticality. Saying my laptop was stolen, I have no way to access my important company data that I need for a critical project. So this is another great thing for AI, because AI can go through and based on those descriptions, I'm going to make a determination about the criticality of this thing. And you can see that the priority was just set to high. And I have AI capturing the rationalization. And it's seeing that the description was critical. The criticality rating was only 2, but because of the circumstances, it justified a higher priority level than the user requested. So you can use AI to apply a set of rules to something to make a determination that isn't explicitly stated, or maybe you even have contradictory information. You can tell it how to reason through or how to apply rules to selecting a value. Again, allowing you to properly prioritize this as high as opposed to low, avoiding having to have a human discover that maybe a few days later. All right. I am wrapped up with what I wanted to show. I want to leave enough time for Artem, who has some really, really cool stuff to show you. But again, pause, Rick, anything that we need to address right now, or shall we roll directly into Artem's portion of the program?
Let's roll into Artem's. It's just calling out again the significance of that. I can see there are a lot of IT leaders, a lot of familiar names in here, and our participants. So hopefully what Peter just showed there is resonating. Really key use case of our AI.
Excellent.
Artem,
All
let's see
right,
what you
take it
got.
away, Artem.
All
Yep.
right. Sharing, yeah, we're short on time, so I will try to be quick, yet not skip too much stuff, which is challenging. So I had 3 use cases in mind to share with you today. All of them relate to project management domain, so I hope that it will resonate to most of the people on this call. The first idea was to show how we can grab a transcript of a customer call, process it, and then generate a list of structured and manageable action items, right? One thing. Then the second one, if we have time, I will show how with the help of AI, we can improve the discipline of a team that is supposed to post daily updates. And then what happens if they skip those updates? Like how can project manager deal with that? And the third one would be just standard thing. Project manager has to generate a weekly status update for their project. With the help of AI, it should be really, really simple and flawless, all right? So we are in the project management solution in the projects table. Looking at the list of projects, we'll be using this one as an example. And we see that every project has a link to a client. And then we have a list of contacts from the client side who are involved into this project. And then we have some team members who actually work on the project from our side. So that's what we have to begin with. And opening up the first use case, we'll go to the activity log table. So this is the table where the team will log all the calls they have with the customer, with the client. And what they do, they will upload a transcript of a call. You can get it from Fireflies, and there's a ton of different tools that can do it for you. And I can show an example of this, how this transcript looks like. It's nothing fancy, it's just a plain text file. Up above it has some list of people who were on that call, and then it just blah, 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 blah. It just shows who said what. And then when workflow runs, the end result will look like this. So first of all, we'll get the transcript, extracted from that file and put into the SmartDoc so that it stays in SmartSuite, it becomes searchable, and now actually SmartSuite owns the data and can do stuff with it. Then the second thing we'll get is the summary, because nobody wants to read through all this, all these conversations. Here's a summary of what happened. Then the cool thing is that we can calculate how happy a client was on that call. Like it will measure the warmth of this conversation. And I made this one on purpose. Like there is a conflict if you read through this, through the transcript. There is a conflict when they argue about the scope of the delivery and the dates. So and the escalation is needed. So this thing immediately went down, which is kind of useful. It will also be able to extract people that were on that call, and it will say that these guys were from the team side and these guys were from the client side. Yeah, and then finally we'll get the list of actions, but don't be confused. This is just like a first step. That's not the final result for the action items that we have to end up with. So here's how we can build this. And because Peter was very detailed about how the prompt is structured and how this whole thing works, I will just briefly show you what I have inside, and then we will share those prompts with you guys if needed. So my workflow starts when I just kick off the status to like, okay, process the transcript. Very simple. It can be a button, it can be a toggle, doesn't really matter. Then in the prompt, let me go through to the main part. In the task, we will ask it to generate transcript. We will ask it to generate the list of action items, and we will instruct it to put a description, a responsible person, the ownership of the action item. Like, is it the client who needs to take action, or is it us? Is there a due date for that action item? So all this will be captured. Then here we are calculating the friendliness. And up above, there is a part that happened to be really complicated for me to build a prompt, because I actually asked it to parse. I closed that. I closed the transcript, but it had the list of people on that call, and the goal here was to understand who from that list belongs to our team, who belongs to the client's part, and that's why I kind of had to extend this prompt a little bit. I feed in the list of client context, I feed in the list of team members, and then it just reads the script, and from the context of that script, it understands who is who. But that's like a nice addition. And the output here is quite simple. It's a bunch of fields. We're saying this is the summary, this is the title, this is the status, the transcript, and all that. And then all we have to do is just take it and carefully put it back into our record, just updating the transcript, the summary, action items, and all that, right? And this is how we get to the result. And also the cool thing is that if it doesn't recognize people on the call, it would put them in a separate field where it says, okay, look, there's a new contact, there's a new person attended, and I think this person was from the client side. And there is a new person, and it looks like this was somebody from your team. And then I can take action. So maybe I will need to put these people into the system, make a dedicated record for them, link them to the project, and process them. Okay. And then once we have this plain list of action items, there's time for the second part of the workflow, when AI will work with this plain text and generate something that will look like this. So it's a table dedicated to action items. Each one is linked to a project. It's linked to a conversation or the sales call that it originated from. It has a title, it has a sequence, and it puts the most important item at the top, and then the less important will be at the bottom. It tries to understand, like, can it assign to somebody or not? Well, in this case, most of them got assigned. Tries to find the due date, and then puts the ownership. Well, in this case, all of them happen to be internal, and this is just the description that we saw. The prompt behind it is quite similar to what Peter showed you. So we'll feed in this list of this text field with a list of action items. And we will ask it to read it and spread it into, divide it into objects where every object will represent the action item, and it will have some properties like sequence, description, title, owner, all this that you see here. And that's why the output looks a little bit scary, but in fact, it's a list where we say, and everything in that list is an action item, and the action item consists of these fields. And then at the end of the workflow, we run a loop, and we just go one by one and create records for every object in that list. And again, very simple. We just fill in all the fields that it has here. And by the way, you could have combined both of these flows together, but for demo purposes, I divided them into two, just was easier to digest. Yeah, so that's the end result for creating structured action items from an unstructured sales call transcript. Do we have any questions, or can I jump into the second use case?
Keep rolling, Artem. This is gold.
All right. Now, the second one, it's quite simple, but I think it's very fun. So we have daily stand-ups table where people who work on the project, so these three guys, they are supposed to post daily updates about what they worked on yesterday, what they're going to work on today, any blockers, issues, all that. So we can see an example of how it looks like for Brian. So yesterday I worked on this, today I'm working on that. I have blockers, dependencies, so just regular stuff. But then what happens from the project manager's perspective? How do I know if everyone was disciplined enough and put in their update? Because people often tend to forget, and then it causes a whole bunch of issues. So then on the project side, we have this button that kicks off the workflow that will actually check if there are people who skipped their update. And I will run it with as a status, but in production, of course, it would be running on the background. So you'll have something like at a scheduled time, run daily or run every 2 days, something like that. Yeah, let's see what we have here. It's in the projects, check stand-ups. Okay, but before I get to this prompt action, I have 2 fine steps. Why? Because I need to provide more context to the prompt so that it was able to make better decisions. What I'm doing here, first of all, I'm finding tasks that belong to this project, and I'm only interested in tasks that are not complete, open tasks. So I'll have that list first. Then with the second step, I will search through daily updates that have already been posted, and they have been posted this week, because I'm not interested in stuff that was from 2 months ago. I'll get this one. And now I can get to the custom prompt where I will merge the results of both of these finds, and I will tell the AI, like, look, every team member that has open tasks is obliged to post a daily update. So here's a list of tasks. Here's a list of updates that have been posted. Can you check if there are any gaps in those, right? And as an output, again, it will generate this list of objects, because it can be that several people skipped the update. So every person will have its own object. Inside that object, we will tell who this person is, the dates that they're missing, and we'll add the project and their email. So that at the end, once we have this, we can again run a loop, and this time, instead of creating records, we will just create emails, and we will send reminders to those people. And the email will look very simple. We will send it to a person that the AI told us skipped the update. In the subject, we'll say there's an update missing for this project. And then we'll specify a date or dates, depending on how often we run this check, saying, yeah, look, you didn't post an update on this day. And I have just a second, I have an example of how it looks like. Very basic, but yeah, we can go more advanced. But yeah, see, you're missing the update here. And when we go to the data itself and see what we have in the daily stand-ups, we have 3 people, so Brian, Peter, and Mary, all good, boom. And here we see there is no status update from Mary posted. And that's what it found, and it sent an email. So yeah, it worked okay. Right. And finally, okay, we have some time. The last one is about generating the big fat project weekly update report. Again, here I have a dedicated table for the status reports, and we have a bunch of stuff like stoplight status, what's going on with the project, a risk level measured from 1 to 5. Then there's the actual report, some reporting period that this report belongs to. And all this we can get by clicking a single button. I'm just changing this. The workflow starts, and you will probably guess the pattern. Before we talk to AI, we will need to do some work in gathering context information about the project. And we already have like a lot of data, right? So here we will be pulling tasks that belong to this project. Then in the next step, we'll grab all the daily updates that were created during this week, because people talk about their problems, they mention blockers and issues, so there's a lot of useful information there. And finally, here we will see if we can find any sales calls that happened this week, because in those sales calls, something valuable can be found as well. And once we have all that, can we generate this giant input where we say, this is the project, this is the project manager, this is the team, this is the list of tasks. And underneath it, actually, it will send, like if we have 10 tasks, it will send 10 titles, 10 descriptions, 10 due dates, everything, right? And then we have the same for daily updates, sales calls, everything. And now having all this, it's very easy to formulate the task where we say, okay, go ahead and generate the actual report, but also calculate the stoplight and calculate the risk value. And then down below, we have this long prompt, but all it does, it just instructs the AI about the structure of this report. Like, this is how I want it to be displayed, right? And the output, again, we don't need an array of objects. We don't need anything fancy. We just need a bunch of fields. And you will see in a second why. So I ask it to put general section needs to go to this general field. Tasks overview goes into its own field, and so on and so forth. Because when I update, well, I'm not updating, I'm creating this project update, project status report record. I have a SmartDoc field that has kind of predefined structure, and I'm using some basic formatting to make it look nicer. And then in the general section, I say, okay, whatever you put here as general goes into here, then summary, then tasks overview, and so on, and it builds this report. And then we have some stoplight status, risks, but I think you understand the pattern. And when it generates it, the end result here, it will look like this. And yeah, I gotta say, it's I'm not sure I would be able to write a report better than this. Like, what went well, what's risky, what we have to focus on, tasks overview that are completed, tasks that are in progress, some blockers. And it understood that there was an escalation in one of the calls, and it included in here in the risk. So, I mean, it's absolutely meaningful. And yes, it might require some, reviewing and maybe formatting, but I mean, typing it all with hands would take at least like a couple of hours, and we can have it all with one click. Yeah. But of course, it all works when you have the nice and meaningful data that it can really base its decisions on. But I think everybody understands the importance of this. Okay, so I will wrap up.
It's brilliant. Any other use cases you wanted to touch on there in the last few minutes, Artem, before we dig into the questions?
No, that's all I have. That's all I have.
Okay. Very good. All right. Every one of those super impactful applications of the AI, and hopefully it's created some ideas on how you may leverage it. Yes, I can see that there's an appetite to get some of these prompts so that you can start deploying it within your SmartSuite workspace. And we'll share what we can. As Peter mentioned, this might be a blog where we put out some of these prompts for y'all to leverage. There is a theme as well in some of the questions around what sort of data can be tapped into. And so there's been a few questions around when can we expect MCP for wider integration? Is there a date time frame on when SmartSuite might offer an MCP?
We do not yet have a date, but it's something that keeps coming up, and we're absolutely looking at it. So stay tuned. We'll have some future announcements on it, but no formal release date defined at this point.
Okay. And what about tapping into sources like Clint is saying here? He's working on importing unstructured data from Google Drive into a database. Can he train an AI to look at his Google Drive instead of the web?
You would have to get the data into SmartSuite records first. Once that happens, then you can have AI, work through it and categorize things. But we don't have the ability to reach into Google Drive directly at this point as kind of an action type. We can, there are ways, just with our files and images field, you can go grab something from Google Drive, but it's a great idea to have more connectivity to easily access data and incorporate it into the prompt.
Excellent. Okay. A few quick ones here from Colleen. So she's asking about, I think she's referring to our AI capability within a SmartDoc. She's asking if we can clarify which OpenAI model we're currently running on. So that component of our AI.
Yeah, you know what? Artem, I would have to check to see exactly which one we're hitting at this point. It is OpenAI.
Yeah.
But I'll have to look and see
Yeah,
exactly.
it should be at least four-ish, but yeah, it could be. I don't remember
I
either.
saw another question that related to it as well about how we're controlling the list of available models and whether new ones will pop up and that kind of thing. When we get the list directly from those platforms, they're long, right? Because they have previews and all kinds of different things in that list. So we curate it a bit, and we have a kind of a process on the back end to define which ones should be available. So if you're not seeing something that you're wishing to use, shoot us a note, but we endeavor to stay on top of that list and to add things or remove things ultimately when they're deprecated. But to when new things like we've already added GPT-5, that was a big one, but we'll continue to do so as the models and the this AI universe changes, which it does very rapidly.
It sure does. Mindful that we are right up on time here, so just wanted to, if any folks need to drop off, thank you for joining. We'll send the follow up here with the recording and, like we said, some of the prompts for you to put in action. Peter and Artem, do you have a few bonus minutes here? Maybe 3 or 4 more questions we'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Colleen is asking about fact checking or quality controls in place for SmartSuite's AI automations, trying to understand how you can help users feel confident that the AI outputs are accurate, or are we saying that human oversight is still critical?
Yeah, I think that human in the loop is still necessary at this point, because as good as you can make your prompts, there's always the possibility that AI will come back with something that isn't is either not accurate or is hallucinated or just isn't the outcome that you would want to see. So definitely, like Artem was showing, it's generating a draft. At this point, for any critical business process, I would definitely recommend some review, but it's great at categorizing and putting things in like a priority order that can help you through that process.
Yeah,
Awesome.
especially when you operate with data that you derive from a record or set of records, and you ask it to work with that data. So you leave less room for it to invent things, right? But of
Completely.
course, yeah, it can happen.
Yeah, a lot of it comes back to prompting and some of the things that, I'm using on a daily basis. I'll weave in, pretend you are a revenue leader that is looking at this critically. What would be the main concerns with X? So like having that as part of the loop to do that even first review for you, given the context of who you are and what you care about, is just a nice way to maybe consider things that you wouldn't otherwise have thought about when reviewing that content. But agree that humans still need to be involved. Philip and Mary are asking about leveraging, plans to leverage AI in future capacities, like with creation of automations or programming, or Mary's asking about how Copilot is able to help create Excel documents and our ability to create solutions using AI. Is there anything we want to share there?
Yes, all of that. We already have kind of a first generation of solution creation. So if you're on a paid plan, one of your solution creation options is generate with AI. We want to make that more interactive over time, where you can customize things and kind of have an ongoing discussion with AI about structuring those solution outputs. So you can look forward to that improvement. We also want to build in AI assistance to things like generating automations or writing your prompts. Those are areas that we're looking at. And we're planning to embed AI into fields themselves so that you get these capabilities without having to go into the back end and configure the automation and so forth. You could have a cell that performs, think of a cell on a grid like Excel, where that field is performing some sort of AI action and determining its value, either automatically or. So we have a lot of kind of embedded applications for that coming soon.
Yeah, one of the biggest unlocks internally here is when we're engaging in either call it security reviews or RFPs, just there's so much knowledge that's stored within your own SmartSuite instance. So tapping into that to make those flows a little easier. We're doing some pretty clever things there. Barry, to that point, Barry's actually asking about, and I know I think I may have raised this to y'all before. Does SmartSuite have plans for an AI real-time coach, like a SmartSuite coach on AI in some of the capacities where AI is being leveraged? So
Yeah,
building automations, things like that.
I think some of the ones that I just mentioned are kind of in that category with solution creation. We'd also like to add it to Formula Builder and allow AI to help you. Those kind of an action that AI has access to. So the vision is to make this more kind of an agent-driven flow. The result of that AI action of whatever type it is isn't necessarily just a field value. It could be a whole work stream where it decides, hey, we need to create a new table. We need to add a field for this. We need to help you improve your environment in a variety of different ways. So those are all things that we're looking at as we continue down this path.
Great. Noting there's a lot of love for it looks like the AI formula builder is one that's raised some eyebrows here. We have a question here about the cost of the different AI models. So tapping into the API key, I mean, that cost is obviously we're not charging for this, to be very clear. The cost would be relevant to the model that you're leveraging. Is that fair to say?
It is, and that's why we try to give you some relative guidance on, how how expensive are requests to that particular model. Like, the primary ChatGPT 5 model versus like a 4.0 mini or a nano model, which, maybe are faster and less expensive for more basic tasks, or, summarization, text compares, that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely check with the platform that you're using on their pricing model. We do return the number of tokens that were used every time the AI runs, and it's available as one of the outputs. So if you wanted to throw that in a field somewhere, you can do that and kind of get a relative sense of, how much how much fee would be associated with running something over time.
Mhm. All right, Caitlin. So there are a few questions here, not AI related. I'm going to park those, and these are ones that we can follow up with individually, just keeping this very focused and mindful that we are over time here. But Caitlin is wondering if there is any way to reference the rest of a record within our SmartDoc AI capabilities. So fields within that record within SmartDoc.
You actually can. If you put a field name in between, and remind me, Artem, is it single or double curly brackets? Can't
That's a good question.
remember off the top of my head. We'll try it out. But you can reference a field name as part of the prompt, and it will include that data when it's sending your request to the AI. So will in addition to some of the prompts that we ran through today, we can have a section on just how you can use that AI assist a little more interactively.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, we are 8 minutes past. Thank you all for sharing the time with us today. Covered a lot of ground, and we'll have some pretty meaningful follow-ups. Just want to say thanks again for sticking with us. When it comes to bringing AI to the forefront of your workflows in SmartSuite, it's exciting times. Enjoy the rest of your days, y'all. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.